I'm excited to share the wisdom of Principal Keisha Hill, someone who's led the way in building cultures where engagement thrives. As a special beginning of the school year edition, this conversation will focus on the leadership moves that set the tone for strong implementation of Kagan. Moves that make engagement not just a goal, but part of every student's daily experience. As you listen, I invite you to ask yourself, how can I set the tone in my own school or district so that every student has the daily opportunity to be actively engaged? Welcome everyone to this installment of the Kagan Implementation Network webinar series. We are so excited to have you here today and to share with you the story of Principal Keisha Hill. Keisha is currently the principal of Homeschool Academy in Colorado Springs. And the focus of the webinar today is going to be on the beginning of the year, right where many of you are. You might have already been in school a few weeks, maybe a month if you're on the year-round type calendar, and some folks are getting ready to begin in about a week. So we want the focus today to be on leadership moves for the beginning of the school year and supporting Kagan implementation. So Keisha is going to share her story and some of these key leadership moves that are important for you and offer these to you. We'll have a Q&A portion and then we'll close. And as a benefit of being in the live webinar, we will stay on after the recording for about an additional 15 minutes and allow you to be able to interact more with Keisha. Here's a little bit about Principal Hill. There's so much more than what's on this screen, but we have a true veteran in education, 32 total years. Principal Hill has served as a teacher, an assistant principal, and a principal in addition to other roles. Public sector, right now the Homeschool Academy, but all over the education ecosystem. Keisha is a certified Kagan trainer and is able to deliver the workshops like cooperative learning, coaching. Keisha is a wife and mother and enjoys cooking, reading, and playing competitive games with the family. So with no further ado, let's jump in and talk about the story and these key leadership moves. So hi, Principal Hill.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's good to be here with you today. I
So
see
good.
some familiar faces and then some faces that will become friends. I love that.
We really appreciate you being here with us today, Principal Hill. What I would say we start with is share your story with us, if you don't mind, a little bit about your background in education, and then also how did you come into the Kagan world? How did Kagan become a part of what you do?
Sure. So I majored in bilingual elementary education with the hopes of going somewhere and teaching Spanish-speaking students how to speak English. And I graduated in 1993, immediately went into teaching, did not move somewhere where I was able to implement that bilingual education, but I was able to get directly into the classroom. And so that's where I started as a sixth grade math teacher in Ohio. And I loved kids. Learned very quickly. I was not great at classroom management and went to elementary school because I thought, oh gosh, I can't handle these middle school kids. I thought I knew and I don't know the things they don't teach you, right? And so I learned on the job and I stayed in elementary school for several years. I ended up marrying military. My husband's now retired Air Force, but we had 4 children who are all grown now. And we have had an opportunity to live in different parts of the United States. Of course, my husband traveled overseas quite a bit. So there were some seasons that I was kind of that single mama trying to teach and bring my kids to school with me and, go home and maintain some sanity. But I really stayed in the classroom for a considerable amount of time. We ended up moving to Colorado several years later. And in Cherry Creek School District, that was when I got my first Kagan training. Kagan came to my school district And we were in this high school gymnasium, and it was honestly probably 2 to 300 teachers, and there were probably 2 trainers, and it was incredible. And so we did the 5-day Cooperative Learning Institute, and my mind was blown, but it was also on fire because I learned so many things that I didn't realize would just totally change how I was as an instructor. And so I had to wait until I got all the pieces of my head back together because if you've ever done a 5-day institute, it is a lot of information. And you've got to take a deep breath and then start to chunk it and say, what do I need to do first? I just need to start. And so that's what I did. My team and I, we got together and we got started with Kagan. And once I started doing Kagan, once you start doing Kagan, it's hard to not do Kagan anymore because you see the power of it so quickly. And we saw the power of Kagan. And so I'll come back to that in just a moment, but we continue to live in Colorado, in Aurora, Colorado. And then my husband started coaching football for the Air Force Academy. So we moved to Colorado Springs. And I was able to get a job in our local school district in Colorado Springs while he coached football at the Air Force Academy, his alma mater, where he played. So, that's like a dream job. So I continued to still be a single parent, even though he was right here. If somebody's coaching football, they're never around. So I finally decided I wanted to go into administration. So I got my administrative degree, and then we had COVID. Now, COVID happened, and I was kind of working in the school district as a COVID administrator for a while, helping the school district. And after COVID was over, I went back into full time administration again. Now, along the way, I was at a training, and this wonderful woman from Kagan was doing something called cooperative meetings. Cooperative meetings is really for administration and leadership, and it really helps you reframe or rethink, how do I structure a staff meeting, right? Because really, what I want my teachers to do, I wasn't doing as a leader. And so when I took cooperative meetings, I ended up meeting the instructor, and she said, I noticed here that you have had a lot of Kagan training. Is that something you might be interested in doing? No, I don't want to do what you're doing. That's what I told her. And she contacted me a couple more times. And, I got kind of excited about it. And I finally told her yes. So about 9 years ago, I became a Kagan trainer. And so I actually left being an administrator and became a Kagan trainer. And that's actually what I did for 8 years until last school year. And I traveled the country and I got to meet the most beautiful people, administrators, superintendents, and I really got to show them a different way. And that's kind of led me to where I am now. I'm still a Kagan trainer, but my kids have graduated college, and my husband says, where is my wife? She's always traveling. So I've scaled back a little on the training and the traveling. And I work here in my local school district at a homeschool academy, which I absolutely love. And I still get the perk of from time to time being able to travel across the country and still do trainings and still support teachers and coaches and principals and superintendents. So I'm so excited to be before you today. And hopefully I can share something that, might spark something that goes, oh, wow, I might be able to do exactly what she just said. And hopefully you'll be able to implement it immediately. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
I love that story, Principal Hill. Now, where you sit, because of this diverse experience coming in to the current leadership role you have, what would you say are the key leadership moves that principals and superintendents need to keep in mind as they're implementing Kagan with their teams?
Yeah. Um, Absolutely modeling, absolutely showing your staff, your team, what you want to see. I think when they're able to see it, they're able to implement it a lot more smoothly, and they know that you're a resource. So when I think about, coming back to school, what did our first meeting look like? Well, the very first thing, as when they come back to school, everyone's hugging, they're talking, the energy's high, they're so excited to see each other. And I allow time for that. I know that if I have 9 o'clock, we're not starting at 9 o'clock because they're so excited. So I know that we're starting at 9:05 because they've got to hug and share and oh my gosh, and all those good things. And I love that for them because really what we're trying to foster is community. We are trying to foster relationships, and that's important. So I start off with that, and then when they're ready to kind of settle down, and all right, let's come together. We do things that are Kagan related. So the first thing we did was I said, all right, I've heard you. Everyone has so much to share. We're going to start with four corners. And here's what I want you to do. In each corner is going to be a summer activity you did not get to do. We have these lofty plans for the summer and we don't do all of them. So we started with four corners, and then they were able to go to a corner with an activity that they didn't get to do. Another thing that we did at our first meeting back to school, I already pre-created groups and they did round robin. What was your favorite activity this summer? And then I gave them an opportunity to talk about that. And if I'm correctly recalling, I did a timed round robin, and it was about a minute per person because I could have them sharing all day and I would never get their attention back. So, in order to maintain some integrity to my schedule, I needed to do that. And I always tend to start typically, so especially if you have new staff who aren't familiar, after you're explaining the structure, model it, show them what that looks like. So I'll put a timer up and I'll say, if I were going first, and the question is, what was my favorite activity this summer? And the timer starts. And then, of course, I've reminded them, make sure if I don't talk the whole time, ask me questions. And then I share with them. And then when the timer goes off, it's the next person's turn. So I'm really modeling these structures in their full integrity so they can see what they look like. And then when they go to implement in their learning environment, they've seen it, they've heard it, they've experienced it, and now they can implement it. The other thing that we did at our first meeting is I passed out our handbook because it needed a little revamping, and I gave each group a different section. Well, each group then did a think right round robin to update any improvements that they thought should occur in that particular section. So I was able to implement Kagan, and they didn't even realize it. And at the end, I said, do you realize what we just did? It was a think right round robin. And somebody said, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. So I kind of sneak it in sometimes, but most of the time I tell them, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Look how easy it is to navigate. It's not difficult, but we're modeling what we want them to do.
That's certainly a very clear action to me. What is the beginning of the year meeting? One of if the first meeting's already happened, what's the next one coming up where the leader can set the tone using and modeling these structures with their team? That's wonderful. Now, what about looking at the school year, Principal Hill, and all the things you want to see happen in September and October? How do you plan for that? What are the things that you want the team to be doing to make sure implementation's happening?
So, just a little backstory. Last year was my very first year at this school. Last year, I did a lot of looking and watching. I didn't want to do a ton of changing anything right away. I wanted to honor the practices that were in place. And I also wanted to see where we were because when I walked through the classrooms, I saw a lot of Kagan books, which was very encouraging and very exciting. Now, those were on the shelf, so I wasn't sure how much usage they were getting. And I did share at the end of the year, guys, we're going to really dig into Kagan next year. And so I decided what we would do is implement a structure a month club. And that's not overwhelming. It's a way that I can model at each month's staff meeting. And by the way, let me say this as a caveat before I go into my next point. The way my school is structured, I don't have full time teachers that are here every single day. I have so many different programs. I have about 700 kiddos, but because they're homeschooled, their parent is a teacher of record. So they do most of the academic. We do a ton of enrichment. We create an opportunity for students to experience something that can't be duplicated at home, like social skills in a classroom with other students. And so we have a great luxury in that. I recognize that. And normalizing these structures in the classroom is my goal. Well, in order to do that, I knew that I needed to start smart. And so we decided to come up with a structure a month club. And basically, I have a YouTube channel, and the name of my school is a homeschool academy. And so my YouTube channel, which is private, so you can't get on there. It's just for my it's just for my teachers, but it's called Never a Dull Day at HSA. And I record all my staff meetings for my teachers who are unavailable to see it live or they are not present at work that day. Their responsibility within 48 hours is to watch the video and either ask a question or provide a comment for accountability that shows me that they have seen the information that I presented. Within that video, which is about 30 minutes long, our staff meeting, I am modeling and explaining what's the structure that we are going to be focused on for the month. And they'll see it modeled a couple different ways. And then I also turn the camera around so they can see the teachers practicing it if they're not there in real time. What's the goal of that? I want to make sure that all my students are being able to answer a question, right? Kagan has this really amazing everyone answers tool. If you're unfamiliar with it, I promise it's a great resource, but it's things like peer coach, rally coach, peer share, rally robin. We want to make sure every student is answering when a question is being asked. I mean, of course, we don't do the call on one anymore. We know that's outdated. We know that doesn't work very well. So we want all the students to be engaged. And so by modeling that, then my teachers have an active example that they can go back and watch again if they need a refresher. And the expectation is that every time that teacher is here, let's just take Rally Robin, that they are somehow implementing that multiple times throughout the day, calling it by name. And once they've taught it, they're putting it on a sentence strip, they're putting a poster up because students also need that visual to refer to so that they know this is what we're doing. And look, oh my gosh, it's now November. We've learned 4 structures. Look at us. We're doing great, right? And so that's just a tool that I'm able to utilize with my staff.
That's really great information. And again, I think a clear, maybe 2 action steps here that leaders can make at the beginning of the year. Number one is having something like Sam's Club, Structure a Month Club, which if anyone in the webinar is interested to get an in-depth instruction and support on that, that's in our Instructional Leadership Academy Day 3. It's a whole day dedicated to it. What does it look like, preparing you for it and experiencing it. So that would be the best way to become familiar with what Structure a Month Club is. But another thing I think you're getting at here, Principal Hill, is thinking about the year and what structures do we need to focus on as a school for August or September. And you referenced Everyone Answers. So maybe you pick Rally Robin at the beginning of the year, but what it sounds like leaders need to be doing right now is looking at the year and planning for that. What specifically do I want to see? And what I want to do now is I'm sure folks are interested to learn a little bit more about these. I'm going to go to the chat and we'll start looking at questions from our folks. And if anybody has a burning question, drop it in the chat and time permitting, we'll get to it right now. Or if you want to hang out at the end, we'll cover it in the victory lap, a little bit of extra time.
Dr. Kagan has a comment. He really likes the idea of creating a video library of SAM Club activities. Could you maybe share an idea or 2 beyond that and what that might look like for a school?
Actually, Dr. Kagan, you are so wise. Look at you. We have created a Google Drive with idea sharing. It didn't necessarily have the videos, but I love that idea as well. So at my school, we have created a Google Drive and it is for Kagan structures. So for example, in September, we will have Rally Robin be our structure of the month. Within that Google Drive, teachers are then to go in and share ideas about how did they use Rally Robin with what they were teaching, with their content, so that other teachers can then go back and reference that and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be teaching, life systems, aquatic life systems. And now I can go back and say, what are the aquatic life systems in a pond or in the ocean? And then they can use Rally Robin for that. So really honing in on what did you use it for? And then they can also go to that teacher if they have, more questions or if they want to watch as well to see that take place in real time.
Awesome. Thank you, Keisha. Do you recommend certain activities to focus on for the first maybe 3 months of school?
My biggest goal, I would say, for the first 3 months of school is to build safety. That is key. That is huge. Um, And once they're able to build that safety, making sure that the structure is relationship-based questions initially so that they can, create that level of comfort in the learning environment and they get comfortable sharing answers they know. And I feel like once they are comfortable sharing answers they know, then they're able to get to some content and then they're able to really reinforce their learning. So just creating that community time, which all of my teachers have about 15 minutes in the morning when they come in, that community time, and kids are really just kind of networking and getting together, and it's teacher led and it's very powerful. But also setting norms. Kagan is normed, right? So we are doing structures every single day that the students come to school. And I just think normalizing that and getting comfortable not doing it correctly every time, being okay with saying, that's a great try. Let's try again. You know what? As the teacher, as the leader, I might need to go back and get my paper. I don't know that I taught you correctly. Let me normalize failing forward, right? Normalize that we didn't do it right. We're going to try again. And I think that level of safety permeates into other areas of the day.
Thank you, Keisha. Failing forward is a phrase that I'm going to hold on to as well. That is progress. For a new principal, what should be their steps in holding staff accountable implementing Kagan structures?
Clear expectations. My phrase this year is clarity is kindness, right? Um, Setting clear expectations for the staff for student collaboration and participation, right? Like, so every teacher wants their students to thrive. And so I think realistic expectations, and really, if you're a new principal, like I was saying last year, I was new, I did a lot of watching. I also did a little bit of modeling. I wasn't overbearing, but I built relationships with my staff so that when I did introduce something new, they weren't like adverse to really listening and being able to hear it from me, and establishing clear expectations. What does that look like? If you say, I want you to do Kagan structures in your room, it's not very clear. When do you want me to do them? How often do you want me to do them? What does that look like? Why am I doing them? You might want to set some boundaries like, so here's what I'd like you to think about, staff. I want you to think about the impact of calling on one. How many people are really engaged when you're calling on one? Is there a way that we can call on everyone? Absolutely. And I'm going to give you some tools to do that. Now, if you're going to give them the tools, you're going to have to hold them accountable to use the tools. So that means you're going to have to set an expectation. Does that mean when you ask your opening question for your lesson, you expect to see a K instructor? Does that mean when they're working with their teams or their groups, you expect to see a K instructor? So you're going to have to give them examples and show them because they won't be comfortable initially. And you're going to show them how easy it is. So it's second nature, right? And it's okay also if you go into classrooms and model. I've done that many times. What are you going to be teaching? Do you want me to model that before you do it? Absolutely, I'll come in and do that. And so making yourself available to your staff, I think, is a way, but clarity is kindness, making sure they understand what you expect them to do.
With our teachers are strongly attached to pair share. Have you ever had a teacher get attached to one structure? You actually mentioned the Everyone Answers tool. That is going to be a great way to get them to branch out. But Erin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Principal Hill, how do you get teachers away from a structure that they might be clinging to?
I think you compliment them on their proficiency with that structure. And then you challenge them professionally. Like, so you are a rock star at peer share. I can walk into your room and you are peer sharing the heck out of what you're doing, right? I'd like to see you incorporate something a little bit different and then challenge them. What's another structure that you think you could also utilize with the content that you're using right now? Give them a chance to have some buy-in to that and some, like instead of you telling them exactly what structure you want them to use. Now, providing suggestions is great. I noticed you asked this question. This would have been great for the whole table to answer, right? So I think providing them support is great, but also putting the onus back on them too to say, okay, I'm going to challenge myself and be a little bit of a risk taker to incorporate a structure I may not be 100% comfortable with. Tell them, take your book up with you. You're totally welcome to do that. You won't miss any steps. You can pre-write it out, like all of that. And so I think creating that norm that you don't have to know it all is creating safety for your staff with you as well.
The question says, what's the best avenue to bring someone in to work with our leaders and expose leaders to Kagan? Would love to bring someone in for our building admin, principals, AP, instructional coaches. Has anyone had success with this to create buy-in at the top? What are your
Those
thoughts
are all
on that?
great. Those are all great questions. The wonderful thing about Kagan and being able to contact our implementation team, they will absolutely create a plan for you from start and just a continuum to really help those top leaders understand this is what you're signing up for. This is the expectation. This is what you are buying, right? This is what is going to yield fruit at your school. But in order to do that, you really do have to have your upper leadership understanding what Kagan actually is and the research behind it. If I'm not mistaken, I think chapter 3 in our large Kagan book, it talks all about the research. Research is indisputable. You can talk about the gains academically for student achievement. And so once people are able to tangibly see the benefits of implementation, it's really hard to dispel that. And it's really hard for people not to want to jump on board. So I would definitely contact our Kagan team and just kind of talk about what does this look like for just our top leadership right now? And then how do we roll that out? Yeah, Taste of Kagan, they brought that back, which is amazing. That's an opportunity to preview and get a little bit of information about Kagan as well. Aaron, you might have a little bit more information about how that rolls out. I don't want to overstep.
I think you gave a great answer.
Okay.
We do have a revised version of Taste of Kagan, which is a 75-minute session that is offered two ways. One is pay for us to come out and do that session. I deliver it. It's fantastic. I've felt the buy-in that goes from hesitation and resistance immediately to supporting Kagan. There's a second way outside of the paid way. If you get 12 principals or higher registered for the event, we will come do it for free. But it has to be principals or higher district leadership involved. And there can be more people. The last one I did had about 100 folks in there, but 12 have to be principals or higher, and we'll come do it for free. And that'll build buy-in, absolutely. So I'm going to go back to sharing my slides just to close us out here. So Principal Hill's story was very rich. The sharing today about key leadership moves at the beginning of the school year. These are some things that I just want to highlight for us. Modeling the message, starting with those beginning of the year meetings. What structures are you going to use with your team? I invite you to think about that. Go ahead and start planning. I think it's powerful for teachers to see their leadership using the structures with them. A second key takeaway today that I'd like to offer you is thinking about this Structure a Month Club and how can you make this happen at your site? Do you need to grow your capacity and go to Instructional Leadership Academy, learn about Structure a Month Club? You also can think about this third key takeaway, which is what focus do you want your team to have throughout the school year? The Everyone Answers structures would be the best place to start, in my opinion. What structures from that Everyone Answers tool, pairs and teams, do you want to be the focus in September and October, all the way through the end of the school year? And you can look for these in your walkthroughs and in your conversations with teachers. Principal Hill has been kind enough to share a contact email address for you if you'd like to reach out and learn more and get more support. I'll invite you to reach out. If you think of someone that would benefit from being a part of this network, the Kagan Implementation Network, our major touch point is this webinar, and you think folks need to be a part of this, the email list and these live webinars, you can scan this QR code with your cell phone and just copy the link send it in a text message to them or in an email, and they can sign up to join us. If something's been mentioned today in this conversation about key leadership moves at the beginning of the school year, and this makes you think you need more support from us, whether it is the Instructional Leadership Academy, or maybe we need to come and do a taste of Kagan for your team, you can scan this QR code and fill out a brief form, and someone from our partnership team will be in touch with you. We thank you so much for attending the live webinar today. We are going to hang out for about 15 more minutes with Principal Hill if you'd like to spend some more time with us, but I'm going to end the recording right here. Thank you to everyone who has attended and needs to hop off, and we'll hang out for a few more minutes.